About 10 years ago, a Toyota Corolla rolled into my workshop that completely changed how I think about oil changes. At first, it looked like just another old Corolla, but when I checked the odometer, I had to look twice. It showed nearly 490,000 miles on the original engine. Naturally, I was skeptical. I've worked on Toyotas for years, and most engines with that kind of mileage show their age. They burn oil, develop sludge, or at least have some noticeable wear. But this one was different. It idled smoothly, ran quietly, and honestly felt healthier than some Toyotas with less than 100,000 miles. So I asked the owner what his secret was. He smiled and said, "Nothing special, just a method a Japanese mechanic taught me years ago." That answer stuck with me. When I inspected the engine, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The inside was incredibly clean. No heavy sludge, no thick deposits, very little wear anywhere I looked. Over the next 10 years, I started paying attention to what he told me. I tested the same approach on customer vehicles, family cars, and even some high-mileage Toyotas that came through my shop. The results kept repeating themselves. The engine stayed cleaner, they used less oil, they started quieter, and many of them kept running strong long after most people would expect problems. After watching it work for a decade, I'm convinced this is one of the smartest oil change habits a Toyota owner can learn. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that Japanese mechanic taught and why it may be one of the biggest reasons some Toyota engines make it to 500,000 miles and beyond. Let's get into it. Before I show you the Japanese oil change method, I want to tell you what American drivers are doing wrong. Something I've noticed after almost 20 years of working on Toyota engines. Most American drivers aren't damaging their engines on purpose. They're simply following habits that everyone around them says are normal. I've seen it thousands of times. A customer pulls into a quick lube shop, gets an oil change in 20 minutes, and drives away feeling good because the maintenance is done. Then, they don't think about the oil again for another 10,000 miles. On the surface, that sounds perfectly fine, but here's what I've learned from opening up engines over the years. The drivers who reach 400,000 or 500,000 miles usually don't treat oil changes that way. A few years ago, I had two Toyota Camrys in the shop. Both had similar mileage. Both owners said they never missed an oil change. But when I looked inside the engines, they were completely different. One engine was clean. The metal parts still looked healthy. The other had dark deposits building up inside and much more wear than I expected. The difference wasn't luck. One owner simply paid more attention between oil changes. That's another mistake I see all the time. Many drivers never check their oil level. They assume that because the oil was changed recently, everything must be fine. Then the car arrives at my shop 1 or 2 quarts low. The owner is usually shocked. They'll tell me, "But I just had the oil changed." And my answer is always the same. An oil change doesn't protect an engine for the next 10,000 miles. You still have to keep an eye on it. I've also seen plenty of people stretch their oil change intervals because the oil still looks clean on the dipstick. The problem is that oil can look good and still be losing its ability to protect the engine. That's why some engines start developing sludge, varnish, and wear much earlier than they should. The scary part is that none of this happens overnight. An engine doesn't suddenly wake up one morning and decide to fail. It loses a little life here, a little life there. One missed oil check, one delayed oil change, one small mistake repeated hundreds of times. Then 10 years later, people wonder why their Toyota is burning oil while someone else's Toyota is still running perfectly at 400,000 miles. And that's exactly where the Japanese method is different. Instead of treating an oil change like a quick service, it focuses on all the small details that most people ignore. Those details may seem minor today, but over hundreds of thousands of miles, they make a massive difference. This is why now I'll tell you the Japanese method step by step, so you can too pass your engine over 500,000 miles. If you made it this far, then consider liking this video, giving it a thumbs up, and subscribing to my channel. This helps me bring you more honest car advice. Before you even think about changing your oil, keep two simple rules in mind. The right oil matters just as much as the oil change itself, and the interval matters more than most people realize. Over the years, I've had countless Toyota owners ask me which oil is best for making an engine last forever. They expect me to name some expensive racing oil or a miracle product sitting on a shelf. My answer usually surprises them. The secret isn't finding a magical oil. The secret is using the exact oil your engine was designed for and changing it before it becomes a problem. One mistake I see all the time is people trying to outsmart Toyota's engineers. They'll switch to a thicker oil because a friend told them it provides extra protection. Others buy high-mileage oil, even though their engine isn't leaking or burning oil. In reality, modern Toyota engines are built with very tight tolerances. The engineers designed them around a specific oil viscosity. That's why I always recommend sticking with the viscosity listed in your owner's manual, whether that's 0W20, 5W30, or whatever Toyota specifies for your particular engine. When it comes to brands, I focus on quality and consistency. Over the years, I've had excellent results with Mobil 1, Pennzoil Platinum, Castrol Edge, Valvoline Advanced, and genuine Toyota-branded oil. More importantly, buy your oil from trusted retailers. Counterfeit motor oil has become a real problem, and I've seen engines suffer because the bottle didn't contain what the label claimed. But if there's one thing I've learned from nearly 20 years of working on Toyotas, it's this. The oil itself is only half the story. The interval is where most people get into trouble. Here in America, many drivers hear that synthetic oil can last 10,000 miles and assume that means every engine should go 10,000 miles between oil changes. That's not what I've seen in the real world. Remember that Corolla I told you about earlier? The one that reached nearly 500,000 miles on the original engine. The owner never pushed his oil to 10,000 miles. Not once. He changed it every 4,500 to 5,000 miles like clockwork. And honestly, many of the highest mileage Toyotas I've worked on followed a very similar routine. The reason is simple. Oil doesn't wear out only because of mileage. It also breaks down from heat, moisture, fuel dilution, stop-and-go traffic, short trips, and thousands of engine startups. Even the best synthetic oil slowly loses its ability to protect moving parts as those contaminants build up. That's why my personal recommendation is straightforward. For normal driving, change the oil every 5,000 miles or 6 months. If you make lots of short trips, sit in heavy traffic, tow loads, or drive in extreme weather, bring that down to around 4,000 miles. For turbocharged engines, I like to stay between 3,500 and 4,000 miles. Now, let's take you through the step-by-step oil change formula. Step 1. Loosen the dirt before draining the oil. This was one of the first things that surprised me about the Japanese method. Most people simply drain the old oil and pour in new oil. But after years of working on Toyotas, I've learned that a lot of contamination can remain behind. The idea here is simple. Before draining the oil, help the old oil pick up as much dirt and debris as possible. With the engine cold, add a small amount of fresh oil to the existing oil and let the engine idle for a few minutes. This helps circulate the oil and suspend contaminants so more of them can leave the engine during the drain. I first tried this on a high-mileage Camry that had always received normal quick lube oil changes. The oil that came out was noticeably dirtier than expected, showing just how much contamination had been hiding inside. The goal isn't to use chemicals or miracle additives. It's simply to remove more of the old contaminated oil before adding fresh oil. Step 2. Always drain the oil. Hot. This is where I see many drivers make a mistake. A lot of oil changes are done when the engine is cold because it's quicker and easier. The problem is that cold oil is thick and sticks to engine parts. Hot oil flows much better. That's why I always recommend warming the engine fully before draining the oil. Take the car for a good drive. Get everything up to operating temperature. then drain the oil while it's still hot. Over the years, I've noticed that engines maintained this way tend to stay cleaner inside because more of the old oil and contamination actually leaves the engine. It sounds like a small detail, but small details are exactly what separate a 150,000-mile engine from a 500,000-mile engine. Just remember to be careful. Hot oil can cause serious burns, so always work safely. Step 3. Give the engine time to empty completely. This is one of those small tricks that most drivers never think about. After draining the hot oil, don't rush to refill the engine right away. Instead, let the vehicle sit for about 30 minutes. Over the years, I've noticed that oil loves to hide inside an engine. It stays trapped in oil passages, around the valve train, and in areas where it can't immediately flow back to the oil pan. A few years ago, I tried this on my own Toyota. I thought the oil had completely drained out. 30 minutes later, I removed the drain plug again and was shocked to see more dirty oil coming out. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to make me realize something important. Every drop of old oil left behind is going to mix with your fresh oil. The more contaminated oil you remove, the cleaner your new oil stays from day one. Step 4. Never install a dry oil filter. This is another habit I've picked up after working on Toyota engines for years. Most people screw on a new filter straight out of the box and call it a day. Japanese mechanics often take an extra minute. Before installing the filter, add some fresh oil into it and lightly coat the rubber gasket with clean oil. This helps the filter seal properly and makes it easier to remove at the next service. Why does this matter? Because when you start an engine with a completely dry filter, the oil pump has to fill that filter before full oil pressure reaches every part of the engine. It may only take a few seconds, but I've always believed those few seconds matter, especially if you're trying to make an engine last hundreds of thousands of miles. The goal is simple: get oil pressure where it needs to be as quickly as possible. Step 5. Refill the engine slowly and carefully. One thing I've learned over the years is that more oil doesn't mean more protection. In fact, overfilling can create problems of its own. That's why I never rush the refill process. Add most of the required oil first, then stop and give it a few minutes to settle. After that, check the dipstick and slowly top it up until the level is correct. I've seen plenty of engines come into the shop with too much oil because someone poured everything in at once without checking the level. The best approach is patience. Take your time, check the dipstick, and make small adjustments until the oil sits exactly where it should. It might take a few extra minutes, but that's a small price to pay when your goal is making a Toyota engine last 300,000, 400,000, or even 500,000 miles. So, what kind of results can you expect? After years of working on Toyotas, I've learned that there are no shortcuts to making an engine last. But I have seen what happens when owners pay attention to the small details. The engines usually run quieter, startup noise often decreases, oil stays cleaner for longer, and many high-mileage engines show less sludge and varnish when inspected internally. Most importantly, these engines simply seem to age better. That's why I wanted to share this method with you. Not because it's a miracle cure, but because I've seen how small habits repeated over hundreds of thousands of miles can make a huge difference. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to watch the next, where I'll be breaking 7 gasoline brands that are destroying your engine and 3 that are saviors. I'll see you in the next one.